Hi, everyone. Bruce, James, Marcia, Thomas, Tanya. Lovely to see you guys. Thanks for showing up and getting this opportunity to learn about the importance of soil health. We thought it was fitting because that's like the #1 thing in a successful garden crop. So thank you to Full Circle. This is Cody and his dad, Craig, is here as well. They're dad-son duo of Full Circle Compost and Soils. We appreciate their time for being here. And I'm Jolene. I would start my video, but I'm sitting in my car and I'm blaming COVID for this one. My husband works at home, so you guys can just hear me. But yeah, I'm Jolene Cook and I'm on the board of Reno Food Systems. And we are the entity, the nonprofit organization that puts Reno Garlic Fest on every year since 2017 with Be the Change Project. And because of COVID, we had to cancel it. But my kind of way of reframing is that instead of celebrating in person for one day, we can celebrate all year together virtually. So like, hopefully you guys are all aware of the course that we're putting together on an online platform called Mighty Networks. And if not, we can send chats specifically to each and every person. Please chat me if you guys have any questions about that. But we're going to be doing free content each month with different little tutorials from local farmers and local Garlic Fest vendors with all things garlic, and super rad. And we have tons of cool promotions. We're giving away free garlic. We're doing a farmer mentor program where we're going to send farmers to 10 lucky winners' houses and help them plant and fertilize and help them have a successful garlic crop. So yeah, so it's pretty exciting. It's been fun to put it together. It's a new thing and it's very COVID friendly. And there's not much better than growing your own garlic. So with that, I'm going to let Cody take it away. Thanks so much for your time, Cody.
Thank you. This is awesome. Farmer Craig has been at all the Reno Garlic Fest since they started. He's there poking his phone if you see him in the video. I'm gonna lead on this, and so what you guys can do is if you have questions, just write them down into the chat box. I'm not gonna really chat or check the chat box. If Jolene or somebody else on the admin side is checking, if for some reason you can't hear me, let me know, because we're just gonna start because this is a great presentation on soil health. So today, this is soil satisfaction for Nevada agriculture. This is for backyard gardeners to the largest of growers. We're gonna talk about garlic, but specifically these concepts can be applied to everything. So it's not specific to garlic. We're gonna touch on some things that Farmer Craig is gonna say. But what we're going to start with is, did my slide switch? Nice, Farmer Craig, you're my one saying yes, okay. So this is Farmer Craig. He's in the video down there. You can see him. Hey, Farmer Craig, there he is in his garden in Gardnerville. Farmer Craig is a 4th generation Nevada dairy farmer. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, he went on a very deep mission, even before that, I'd say, to figure out soil health for Nevada so we could increase production at our dairy farm, grow our own food, and the healthiest food possible for our cows, so we could get better milk production. So with that, Full Circle Compost was born. We've been in the business since 97 technically as a company. He's taken well over 1,500 soil samples and soil tests, done recommendations, and then created Full Circle Compost. I am Cody Witt. You can see me here. There I am on a pile of wood chips recycled from Lake Tahoe. I'm running the business that Farmer Craig created. I'm a university graduate, farm kid at heart, but then also kind of business driven. Know soils like the back of my hand as well. And with that, we are the duo of the Compost King and the Compost Prince. I don't know if this is gonna work because it's gonna play on my computer and normally it doesn't work, but we're just gonna play this because it's funny and fun anyway. I don't even know if it has sound. You know I'm the Compost King. I can guarantee one thing. I will help you grow this spring. Your garden looks so blank. Full Circle Compost, baby, you. That's it.
That's so good.
That's our fun.
That was great.
That's our fun video of Farmer Craig dancing on top of compost piles. That's me singing in the background for the Compost King. You know I'm the compost. Sorry, there we're done. Okay, usually in this presentation, we do the compost yoga, which we can probably do virtually. So you're gonna follow along with me. So this is what it is. in the world of yoga, there is a phrase we say, and what you do is normally you get into a position like this. Come on, Farmer Craig, you're going to do it with me. Normally he leads it, but what you're doing is you're getting your body into a position of calm, and what you normally say is Om. So at your house, while you're doing this, you have to do it with me like Farmer Craig is, even though I'm going to do it in my own head. Om.
Om.
Now what you do is you go Om, but you switch it up a little bit and you say
Compost.
So that's the compost yoga. At the end of a yoga, you always say And the reason you say is because you're getting the balance and harmony of satisfying your internal needs. And this is exactly what we're doing with soil satisfaction. We are looking at the balance and harmony of all the minerals, the nutrients, the biology, the organic matter, everything into one harmonious blend, so we can feed the soil, which in turn will feed our plants. And in this case, we're going to have the biggest, best, most tasty garlic on the planet. So the idea of soil satisfaction and soil health in this specific presentation is the wants and needs of the soil, which in turn will then satisfy the plant. We like to view this as food equals medicine. We all know this, and many people on this presentation, or people who will watch this in the future, is food is medicine. The healthier and more nutritious our food is, we can cure disease and live long lives, all based on the food we eat. And it's all based on the way we grow our food. That starts with the health of the soil. To increase the health of the plant, you got to have healthy stuff starting in the soil. If there's nothing there, the plant has nothing to take up. And from that, if your food is really healthy, then you have extremely healthy humans. So soil health, if you look into deep, research into soil health, there's 5 pillars of soil health. There's cover crops, there's crop rotation, there's ways of using water, there's farming practices. Soil health is a huge topic. We're going to talk specifically to understand the soil, primarily from a soil testing parameter and soil testing nutrient basics, and then how you can balance those wants and needs in the soil to increase growth and have more nutritious, tasty food. That's kind of the concept we're going to go into today, without going, super, super deep into anything to lose people into the world of soil science. We can, but we're not going to do that. So, number 1, compost is a verb. It's not a noun. We always use it as a noun, but compost should be the act of composting. With a proper composting process, you create humus. Composting happens in Mother Nature by itself. Leaves drop from the forest floor. They decompose, cool little bugs and microbes go crazy, mycorrhizae, mycelium, they all start breaking down, take to make really nice topsoil. What we're doing in the world of compost, and especially here for Nevada soils, is we're creating an alive material called humus that's going to then be put into your soil to make Nevada soils more productive. So here in the world of humus, humus is humus. Humus is not hummus. 2 M's in hummus. If you call us for a dump truck load of hummus, it's going to be a lot of pita chips, and you're going to have to buy Costco out of the amount of pita chips you'll need, because there's so much hummus on the front door in your driveway. So you have to ask for humus. So what is humus? Humus is the end result of the composting process, a proper composting process. It's where you create a recipe of wonderful items. Microbes eat it and they poop out humus, this magical item that stores minerals, nutrients, water, and disperses them to your plants. So the number 1 thing when you're looking into a soil is, do you have a proper humus level? And we'll look at that at a soil test. What is humus? It's the bank account of the soil. So again, what I just indicated is that it's the mechanism, the organ. It's not really an organism. It's a thing. It's this weird stuff in your soil that holds all of your minerals and nutrients and then disperses them to the plant. So you can think of it as a bank account, an ATM machine. You want a big ATM machine, and we're going to put a bunch of money in it. So when the plant comes up with its credit card or debit card, you can take out that money, which is nutrients. So there's humus. Number 2 in our list is organic matter. What's organic matter? It's future humus. It's the food the microbes are going to eat and then poop out more humus. Awesome stuff. So you want organic matter. Humus and organic matter are synergistically tied, but yet very different. One is through the process of a microbe. Other could be more like compost or wood chips and broken down materials that eventually will become soil food. Okay? Start writing questions if you have them. Number 3 on here is calcium. Calcium is a very important, and in our world, pretty much the most important. A lot of people focus highly on nitrogen only. Nitrogen is very important. But calcium is the truck that goes from the humus bank account to the plant root. So a lot of times calcium's overlooked. Here in Nevada, just in general, we're about 1,000 pounds to the acre deficient in calcium. So with that, one of the main items to look for on your soil test is your calcium level sufficient, and is it available? Meaning, can the plant actually eat it? A big rock of gypsum in your garden can't be eaten by a plant. So how do you get it into an available format that can then move nutrients from the humus bank account to the plant? So we have humus, organic matter, and calcium. Next up is nitrogen, of course. Very important. It's your growth energy nutrient. You need nitrogen. It makes stuff grow big. So as you can see, this is our test garden at Full Circle Compost. Those are tomato plants in 10 inches of garden soil. So if you got the right balance of nutrients in there, you can grow big stuff. And for us, we're going to grow big garlic. Here's 2 other nutrients, phosphorus and potassium. So in the world of normal nutrient, when people look at it on the bag, it's NPK. We look at 13 elements in general, not just NP and K, but NP and K, P being phosphorus, K being potassium, are very important. Phosphorus is the energy driver in the soil. It's for the plant. It's, as I can see, I'm trying to rip off Red Bull. It's the energy for your plants. Potassium is the strength builder within the plants. Okay? And then down here, this is a little secret. The magical ratio, because all of these different nutrients work together, is 1-to-1 P to K ratio for your garden. It's a great ratio. Most of the time we have way more potassium because we've put a lot of manure into our gardens versus way more phosphorus. So what we're looking for is a 1-to-1 P to K ratio. Farmer Craig, are you trying to unmute or are you looking at stuff on your phone? I don't know how to. I don't know how to unmute Farmer Craig. He's just talking. You have to unmute your own phone. I'm going to keep going. Magnesium, this slide, as you can see, it's easy to show in the world of hemp, we'll say. Yeah, magnesium is the key element in the chlorophyll molecule. This is what powers photosynthesis. You can see it really easily in a hemp leaf, for example. So this is why it's here. In general, it's what makes plants more green. Also, the calcium to magnesium ratio in your soil is extremely important because that's what can create hardness in your soil. A lot of times when you get really, really hard soil, is an imbalance of calcium and magnesium in your soil structure. You're unmuted, Farmer Craig, I think.
I am now.
Yep.
Hey, if people want to get on, how do we tell them? Can they do a search for Garlic Festival? They want to join the Zoom meeting. Can they do it without an invitation?
Yeah, definitely. Have them go to Reno Garlic Fest's Facebook page. And
okay.
In the event section, there's all the information. Or I could just email them directly or you directly.
They got to go on the Facebook page, Dad.
I'll tell them to go to the Facebook page. Gotcha.
Yeah, and then it's the event section. That's where like the Zoom info is.
Okay.
Okay, we're up on our next one, and there's many more. So we're just, we're on boron. Boron is a very important yet very small element within soil nutrients. If you want to visualize it like this picture shows, it's the driver of the calcium truck. So again, there's another ratio of how much boron you should have in your soil and how much calcium you should have. So it's how many drivers should be driving your calcium trucks. They need to be in the same ratio So you don't have too many drivers and too little trucks, or too many trucks and too little drivers. So this is another item, and we're just briefly going over some of these just to chat and to show you some of them. There's many more. There's trace minerals like copper, iron, zinc, magnesium, or manganese. We do rare earth minerals where we can get into selenium, and many different things that Farmer Craig could just keep going and going and going on. But it's all about balance. That's the key part. So we briefly chatted about some nutrients. Cool. What does this all mean? How do I know what's in my soil? Great. Soil test. University of Nevada, Reno. There's the quad. This is growing grass, turf. This is a soil probe taking a soil test. So what we're going to chat about now is soil testing. There's many, many labs out in the world. We're going to give you this is very opinionated information. There's many great labs out there. So just when you're thinking of labs, you really want to know these three things. Labs either test with strong acids, they test with no acid, water, which you can buy a test, at your own on Amazon, or they test with weak acids. The key is understanding how a plant eats. So with that in mind, a plant eats with weak acid exudates. So what the plant root does is it shoots out really weak acids and it eats the wonderful minerals and nutrients that are around there and then sucks it up through its roots. So in that mind, here, when you look at a soil test, if they are testing with really harsh acids, battery acid isn't it, but ammonium acetate, a very hard acid that could take a rock, gypsum, for example, calcium, and melt it enough, but shows really high on your soil test, but it's in a rock format, your plant's sitting there growing and it's going, oh, I want some calcium, but it's a rock. I can't eat it. The soil test can give you, depending on what type of soil test you're using, a different version and a different perception. Some of it is a great perception from a hard acid perspective. Some is great from a weak acid perspective. So with that in mind, what we like to see is a balance of two. So with that in mind, there's a lab out there. We can give it to you. They're called International Ag Labs. We do not work for International Ag Labs or have any affiliation other than we like the way they test, and it's only $56 for a test. It's really cheap. What they do is they have a hard acid and a weak acid profile on their test, and they're also testing many, many different things beyond just your NP and K. Because what happens a lot of times is you'll send off a soil test to a lab locally, and you'll get soil structure, pH, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and that's it. This tests for humus, it tests for organic matter, it tests for everything. So in this presentation, we can just go down this briefly. Here's a test. I can't actually remember where this test is from that we used. I think it's a local pasture farm in Gardnerville, Nevada. On this test, they have humus at a level of 10. We want a level of 30 or 40. Pretty simple. We need some more humus. My bank account's not big enough. Nitrate, nitrogen, and ammonia nitrogen, two different types of nitrogen, both a little bit low. Man, I need a little bit of nitrogen. Phosphorus, 174, and these are all in pounds per acre. Pretty simple. How many pounds of this mineral do I have on this acre? 73. I need some phosphorus. Potassium. Oh, I have extra potassium. 414, 414 pounds versus 167. What maybe brought my potassium levels so far up? Without jumping ahead, maybe they use some manure, which we do a lot of times in agriculture because we get manures for free. So because of that, maybe this person used a little bit manure. Calcium, here's a perfect example when I was saying that 1,000 pounds to the acre deficiency. We're looking for 3,000 pounds and we're at about 1966. This top part on the International Ag Labs test is the weak acid. So this is the plant saying, hey, this is what I can eat. So that's what this is. The ratio here, you can see a 5.7 to 1 calcium to magnesium ratio right to the right. We're looking for a 7 to 1, a little bit low. Okay, interesting. Magnesium, 344 pounds, 429. We're looking low there. But interesting, now, I'm looking low here, but at the same time, I'm low in calcium. So what do I need to do? And we're going to explain a little bit of this. Sodium, ooh, a little high. Ergs, that's energy, very high. Usually that's synergistic with sodium. ORP is oxygen reduction potential, Farmer Craig. That one just is how much nutrients are from too much tillage are going out into the atmosphere. You don't want that to be too high. pH 7.1, not bad. Copper 2, we're looking at this ratio here. Iron, where it's 174 pounds iron. Wow. And we can say what that is. Zinc 2.4, not bad. Manganese 8 out of 30, we're at 7.4, a little low. Boron 0.8, we're at 2, a little high.
Can I interrupt here? We have a question about boron and calcium.
Yeah.
What was the ratio from boron to calcium again? You had mentioned it, and James just missed it.
So the boron to calcium ratio, if you do a bunch of research, there's many different opinions on it because boron can become very toxic very quickly. In general, 700 pounds to 1,000, well, it's ppm, it's not in pounds. So it's a 700 to 1,000 ppm or 700 to 1 or 1,000 to 1. So in this case, technically, if you have 3,000 pounds of calcium, you could have up to 3 ppm boron. Well, this is pounds to the acre, so you have to do some fun conversion, and this is what Full Circle does on the daily basis. Farmer Craig, divide by 2 or times 2?
For
pounds to the acre to the ppm.
there's 2 million pounds in an acre. So that's in the top 6 inches. So parts per million, you have to multiply, to get parts per million, you multiply pounds per acre by 2.
Yeah. So you have, in this soil, 1966 times 2 is 3,932 ppm of calcium in the soil. If you divide that by 1,000, you could have 3.93. Boron is a very touchy subject in Nevada because we have areas of Nevada that have very high toxic boron levels, and there are plants can be very non-tolerant to boron. So you do want to watch boron, but I guess a good way to put this is you don't have to be scared of boron because you do need boron to run the calcium truck. So a lot of people, especially in the world of landscape and in agriculture in general, get so scared of boron that they try to remediate it. But you can remediate it with calcium, and as long as the ratios are correct, one of the main points in this presentation is that as long as there's balance in your soil, you might have really high levels, but if your ratios are imbalanced, the plant's going to eat what it wants. We like to think of it as a buffet, right, Farmer Craig? A buffet of soil nutrients. As long as they're in the correct balance, the plant's going to get into that buffet and say, hey, I want some crab legs, I want some egg rolls, I want some fried rice, I want some Caesar salad all at the same time, versus if you only have nitrogen only and everything else is low, it only can do one thing. Comment, Farmer Craig, on that one?
Well, I think the main thing for Nevada is without a soil test, you don't know where your boron is at. And so if you don't have enough boron, you can have all the calcium in the world and it's not activated. You don't have drivers for that calcium truck. If you have too much boron, normally that's like Damani Ranch, Double Diamond, swampy, wet areas will accumulate boron because of our dry climate. And in that case, you have to have more trucks to keep all those drivers happy.
Yes, sir.
There's
another question.
Yeah, did you see it?
Yeah, what type of testing does the extension offices use? I do not know. I'm assuming they're testing them through UNR. Dad, do you know?
Yeah, extension does pH and salinity. It's 2 tests you can do with a simple meter, and they give you symptoms without a cause. So they're going to tell you most of the time in Nevada that our pHs are high, and typically we have plenty of sodium in the soil. So it's just 2 things. It doesn't give you, and trying to work with that, what you'll end up doing is if your pH is high, they never suggest that you add any calcium to the soil. What we're finding on our tests, and you see these just as well as I do, we can add a bunch of calcium. On that one test that we looked at, you need 1,000 pounds to get that plant happy, and we can add that 1,000 pounds and we don't affect the pH if we do it correctly with our humus-based fertility.
Yes, sir. So, but again, I would just ask them what type of testing they do. Again, the opinions on soil testing labs is really, you can use many. This is not the only one we use. We use our own, we use different labs for different things. So we actually test our compost with a different philosophy and a different program. So again, there's many open-ended ways to look at this. So just take our opinion with a grain of salt. There's Stukenholtz, A&L, Crop Production Services, International Ag Labs. All of them look at different things. We like to see the biggest open perspective so you can take multiple items. So for example, here at the bottom, can you see my
Yeah.
mouse? Okay. So
Yeah.
base saturation here at the bottom, this is showing you hard acid, where we looked at weak acids up top. This is showing us hard acids. So what this is showing us is that even though, and this is a great point, magnesium, for example, right here, we're showing 30% magnesium, which means we have more magnesium than we need, but that's from a hard acid perspective. But up here in the magnesium area, we actually showed deficiency. So without knowing that slight subtlety, that you actually probably have enough magnesium in the soil. It might just not be plant available because the balance of calcium and magnesium is wrong. So this is where your mind goes, whoa, if I actually add more calcium to my soil, potentially my ratio gets better and that calcium interacts with the magnesium correctly and makes it available to the plant. And you see a different interaction. So those are the small little unique things that get a little bit crazy in the world of soil testing, you know, but it's what we love and we do every day.
I think the main thing to remember is plants don't read the soil tests. And so what I've tried to do is, and why we like International Ag Labs, is we're trying to really speak the language of a plant and understand what these plants really crave and really want. Once we started to back off of what I learned in college and what I wanted to know with the hard acid extracts, then we started to get phenomenal results.
Yes, sir.
With garlic.
Real quick, because we're about half hour in, so we're gonna blast through this last bit. This second part of an International Ag Labs test, the CEC test, is technically your hard acid. We already talked down here. Base saturation shows you your main percentages. We always try to shoot for above 70% calcium. So this is verifying that the 1,900 pounds to the acre of calcium, we need to bring this up. Organic matter is here, 3.98. That's great. In Nevada, on average, unless you've been doing stuff to your soil, we're looking at 1 to 2%. We want to be at a minimum 3, optimal 5. So in the world of organic matter, you want to bring in compost, for example, is a great one, or you grow your own cover crop, you green manure, you till in that organic matter, many ways to build up soil health in many different ways. So that's one item. pH is already looking really great in this soil. We could bring it down a little bit, but not bad. So those in general are a quick review of a soil test and what you look at balancing. We're happy to help look at those. And then, so the idea and concept is then what do you do with that information? How do I do something? And this is where, from the soil test, you could say, I am deficient X, so I'm gonna add X. You could do that through adding specific nutrients directly to the soil. For us, what we kind of do is we take compost as our carrier, the humus and the organic matter, and the biology. You can't forget the biology. The compost is bringing in that life, blending that with the specific minerals and nutrients that are missing from the soil, and then applying those at a specific rate or ratio based on that soil test. So that's what this is a picture of. So some examples of those nutrients that from the soil test, you can add. So there's for calcium. I'm deficient in calcium. What do I add? Gypsum, limestone, dolomitic limestone, solution grade gypsum, solution grade limestone. There's different grinds, fine grind versus slow release. So these are some items, and these are just examples because a lot of people don't, when they think of calcium, they go, what is that? So there's some there. Micronutrients, macronutrients like nitrogen. From an organic perspective, feather meal. That's a great one. There's many different organic nitrogen sources, but feather meal's one. Phosphorus, soft rock phosphate. It's a mined mineral, organic. We're talking specifically organic, and then over here. Magnesium. How do I bring up magnesium? Magnesium sulfate. We have magnesium carbonate. There's mined minerals, and then there's Epsom salts, which is magnesium sulfate. Sulfate of potash, K-mag, which is there, sulfur. And we're going to talk about sulfur a little bit, and I'll let Farmer Craig. Sulfur is extremely important. I didn't talk about it on the soil test because sometimes we don't test for soil. On this one, sulfur wasn't specifically tested for. Sulfur can control pH, but the biggest one for garlic is sulfur is the flavor maker. It is the macronutrient that is sitting there to make all the flavor. Farmer Craig, spiel on sulfur.
Well, in the family of alliums, so that would be onions, it'd be garlic, shallots. The alliums, when you eat a good homegrown bite of garlic, it can be very, very powerful. And that sulfur is used to mobilize the other trace minerals and to give garlic that real pronounced effect. We've even grown elephant garlic, which tends to be really mild. And when you have a really, really nice balance of minerals in the soil with adequate sulfur in it, that flavor of even elephant garlic can be a wow factor. I just had some Maui garlic and I ate one clove, and I mean, it was crazy. I thought I was going to pass out. So we make sure that sulfur's there along with the calcium and all the trace minerals and the broad-based rock powders. And that just turns the switch on, just does amazing things with the alliums.
And with that, the biological factors in a soil, and it's that biology that's able to mobilize and utilize micronutrients and macronutrients. It's those microbes and the fun bugs and everything that are going on that are going to make those nutrients plant available. Just throwing gypsum on your field doesn't do it unless there's some life to make that party happen, that compost party happen. So there's things like yucca, compost teas that can add biology. Mycorrhizae is great. Liquid fish, molasses, there's worm castings, humates. I mean, there's even biochar because there's many different things that can be added. We're not going to go into each one in a plus or minus on all of them. There are chemicals. If you are into the chemical world, there's chemicals too. With chemicals, specifically from a full circle perspective, we do 99% of our stuff organic. If you want to add chemicals, make sure you're doing it in proper. Don't just do only chemical conventional fertilizer applications. Balance that like a salad, like a big salad with some ahi tuna on top. Nice, give a little bit of fun stuff too, but just do everything in balance. I think that's going to be one of our biggest things is the balance. And here, this is that concept of a nutrient. This is specific to compost, but a vitamin for your soil. Plants want many things. They don't just want NP and K. So the key is looking at the flavor profile within garlic, within the nutrient availability within your plants itself and how good they are for you. You can taste the difference in a store-bought tomato versus something you've grown in your garden in a very sustainable way, putting in the correct nutrients into the soil. So with that in mind, your mouth knows, your body knows. So in that concept, putting that multivitamin in the soil is there. This isn't an idea of just what compost by itself brings. So here's compost by itself. This is just an average profile of 2 tons of our compost specifically. But then imagine if you take that compost and then you add all of the other stuff. So for example, in that soil test, if you only add compost and we're 1,000 pounds of calcium deficient to the acre, this compost is going to bring in 2 tons, only 42 pounds. You're not even close to the 1,000 pounds of calcium to the acre you need to add. So you've got to add something else, because a lot of people call us and go, I'm just going to add compost only. It's great. That is by far, add some compost in the correct balance, not too much, not too little, what your soil can handle. But you need to then look at all the other macro and micronutrients, because you can't get the levels of certain items up with only one thing. You got to do lots of things. I'm going to skip forward because I want to get through some stuff.
We're getting
Here's
some
one big
questions. Sorry to interrupt you, Cody. We're getting some questions. Do you want to wait till the end and then maybe you can kind of see where our time's at and answer these puppies? There's like 3 or 4.
Yeah,
that we're gonna address.
Yeah, let's just get through. We'll get to the growing connection piece, and I just wanted to see if I can get there by like in the next 10 minutes, and then we'll just open it up and just chat, and then we can get people to get unmuted too.
Okay, perfect.
So just one quick one on organic matter that we like to bring up, and this is mainly for the water part that's over here, especially in Nevada. Backyard gardeners to the front gardeners, or to small gardeners in your backyard, I mean the big gardeners. Increasing organic matter in your soil by 1% can save 27,000 gallons of water to the acre. So here in Nevada, in an arid climate with not a lot of available organic matter without putting it into the soil or growing it and getting it into the soil, we're on a water battle, and we need water. We need to save water. So a key part of this is that's where organic matter becomes such an important piece, is to be able to save water in a correct format. And then again, it turns into soil food. But just in the world of organic matter, I don't want to talk too much about compost. That's just a key part of this, is that if we can get up to that 5%, it's amazing what we can do with that. We'll come back to mycorrhizae too. This is just a cool picture of mycorrhizae versus no mycorrhizae. Anywho. All right, so this is just the proof of the concept, and then we'll actually pretty much just go into questions, and that'll be great. This is a conventional farmer that used to do either nothing or conventional fertilizer, looking at NPK only, really, that's it. He came in from the Bay Area, said, I'm gonna be a farmer and I'm gonna start growing hay. And so originally he was getting about 750 bales of hay on an 18-acre field, 28 tons, which is only 1.56 tons of the acre. And in Nevada, that's pretty low. I mean, you can grow pretty well in Nevada doing not that much. What we did, and this is just to show, we came in with a soil test, did the exact same thing we're doing now, got a soil test in his field, looked at the nutrients, said, hey, this is what you need. Where's your organic matter? Where's your humus level? Where's your nitrogen? Where's your calcium? Put it all into one big blend. And again, this is stuff we could do or you can do on your own too. This is, we're not pushing that it's only us that can do this. You can do this yourself. Put it in there. And this was 2 applications. One in fall, we let it soak in all fall, went and did another application in the spring. And this was the cutting directly after. 1,930 bales, 95-pound bales versus 75-pound bales, 5 tons to the acre. But the key part of this, and this is what we get most excited about, this goes back to the human health side. This farmer used to buy hay from a conventional farmer using chemical fertilizers, and he had a horse colic problem. Farmer Craig went to the stable. They board like 10 to 12 horses, and horse colic is pretty much horse indigestion that can eventually kill a horse. And it's because they eat too much. They're not getting their nutrients. They're not filling themselves up, and they eat and they eat and they eat. And eventually they can burst. And they don't burst, but they can get really sick. What happened is when he started feeding this new hay, grown himself with an idea of soil health, the horses started eating less. They would eat and walk away. They wouldn't just keep eating and eating and eating. And the equine colic went to almost 0. And I think when you were there, Craig, he said 0. It was at 0.
Yeah. The key thing in that example is that because it was pasture grass, so that's why we call it hay. It's horse hay. So they do grazing and then they cut one crop. And we got a tremendous response, but the most interesting thing is that we did it with only, if I recall that custom blend, only 400 pounds of compost to the acre. Now that's not much compost at all, but the reason we had to do that is the grazing of the cattle and horses on these grasses delivered a continuous supply of manure. But those nutrients, even though these horses are eating and the cows are eating and making manure, that manure doesn't fix deficiencies because it's not in any manure when it's not in the soil that these critters are eating the Perfect. Produce of, if that makes sense. So it was a crazy example reinforcing all of the issues of balance. So we had to come with very little potassium and compost because there was so much manure. And I saw that question about manures and should you use them or not. And it's fine to use manures, but you have to do some homework with the soil test to know when you begin to over apply manure.
And to just answer that question real quick, if we go back to the soil test real quick. So this is 414 pounds of potassium. So, and you can see down here that we said either a high manure compost, or in this situation, potentially they were just getting some manure and spreading it on their fields. This is pretty low. This isn't anything where we look at the soil test and we go, oh, that's crazy. We know that there's a bad balance there, but we've seen potassium levels, probably even at our own dairy farm back in the day, in the 2,000 to the 3,000 to the 4,000, where you get so much potassium overload, the plants can't, it's over manuring and your plants can't handle it. So in this situation, and going back to the field with the cows or with the horses, was that the ability to only apply small amounts of compost and then highly focus on the minerals, macro and micro, that were deficient in the soil, did that big of an increase into the field's soil health that the plants could uptake it and then increase production that much. And then also nutrient density of the hay itself is amazing. And I think the total blend on that field ended up being only about like 1,500 pounds of stuff to the acre. You know, and again, 1,500 pounds of something, 400 pounds of compost with gypsum and limestone. That's so small when you really think of it spreading over such a huge area to have that tremendous of an effect. And again, that's really the point we're pushing home, is this concept and idea of balance, that there's no one right way or wrong way. It's the balance that's the key driver to get results. One more quick example, and then we're almost at 6:45, and then we'll just answer questions. Here's a great one Farmer Craig did. We're super anecdotal. You know, we're farmers. We love soil science, but this is 30 for Farmer Craig, a million years. For me, only 35 years. No, just kidding. Yeah. Of hands-on experience. We do soil testing, but a lot of it just comes from seeing it with your own eyes. We were just Envirolution, the education nonprofit here, was just at our site, and we were picking tomatoes the size of people's heads and zucchinis 4 feet tall. And this example is here's a store-bought Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's, I'm gonna throw them under the bus. I don't care. Trader Joe's, people love Trader Joe's. This is a pepper, and all Farmer Craig did was he grew peppers in his own garden, the way we grow peppers, doing whatever Farmer Craig's doing. And here's some store-bought peppers. Farmer Craig put both these plates on top of his water cooler and just let them start to dehydrate naturally. Food should be able to just dehydrate. In our world, depending on the nutrient levels, we see stuff in our fridge decompose and mold in 2 seconds. It's all based on nutrient density. And so this is just a very profound picture of seeing something organically grown, because organic sometimes means you do nothing. Doing nothing is not always good either. So something that potentially is organically grown that we feel in our consumer brain is, oh, this is good for me. And it might be, but it didn't dehydrate, it decomposed, it molded out, where these other peppers, Farmer Craig just threw on a shelf and they dehydrated. You want to?
I think an interesting thing also is that I have found that the garlic that I grow using a balanced nutritional program, it has tremendous shelf life. If I buy garlic, I will put it on a little rack that I have, and it seems like it dehydrates, and all of a sudden I just have an empty paper shell with nothing inside. And it's just interesting, and I'm sure other folks experience the same thing. Nutrient density is the key to balance nutrition, flavor, and most importantly, our health.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick, this is just a picture of those fields. These were the 2 fields next to each other in Gardnerville. That's actually specific to the horses. One was applied with the custom blend and one was not, next to each other. Just an interesting picture. You can see the difference. This house is on the other side of this field. And these are just some concepts. Again, this is, I don't want to push us too much because we're here to just give information. But what we do and what we're presenting is information-wise is kind of what we put into the stuff we do. You can just see here, this is amazing. Here's organic nutrition on a lawn, and this is the first rainstorm of the season, like in February that we get, right when it starts to warm up, February, March, and the rest, this is not Photoshop, this is just the rest of the neighborhood that as soon as rain comes, this lawn comes to life again. It's like, yeah, I'm ready. Where other lawns and fields and agricultural only come to life when you stimulate them because of more than likely it's too much chemical fertilizer usage. Here's a great one. Even in the world of organics, again, depending on the balance of nutrients, spinach seedlings versus a different balance of spinach seedlings, different nutrients, different loads, the balance of those nutrients in the soil, flowers in a flower pot, the university. These are just all examples. Farmer Craig growing tomatoes. That's crazy. That's in sand. You can see in the picture, I don't know if you can see it in this one, there's just straight sagebrush behind him in the right-hand corner. I mean, it's just sand, and you can bring soils to life if you do them correctly. All right, so that's the presentation. We have questions. Okay. How big can the organic matter chunks be when adding to soil? I have some compost going that looks pretty good, but it still is kind of chunky. So here's the best for backyard compost. I don't know if this is specific to backyard compost or not. Here's the key. If you can still tell that it's a banana peel, it's not soil food yet. It's not compost. So when we go to that idea of composting, and this is what we see when a lot of people use compost tumblers and turners, or really chunky or really big pieces of wood, the bigger the macro organic matter is in your soil, the way we like to think of it is baby food. Nevada soils, even though they're ancient, like babies. We have very arid soils, minimal biological activity. So if you put big chunks of raw or big chunks of something into the soil is going to sit there and attempt to eat it really slowly because it's a baby gnawing on like a giant raw carrot. If you cook the carrot, process it correctly, and put it into a format that the soil can eat, then it's going to be able and be more available to the plant. So the same goes back to that gypsum idea of just throwing huge chunks of gypsum out there. That's not going to be available for years and years until the soil breaks it down correctly. So same with organic matter. When we look at chunky organic matter, if it's raw and people just dump raw wood chips into the soil, you're looking at slowly eating something that's raw as a baby versus eating something that's like baby food. That idea and concept of baby food is there. So with compost, make sure you're cooking it long enough and it's breaking down as much as you can, and then and heating up to temp, especially if you're composting food waste. Just watch out for your pathogen control, especially in your backyard. If you don't have hot enough temperatures and the correct pathogen control, you just don't want to get yourself sick or anybody else. So those are those. Did I answer that question, James, or do you want to re-ask? Or James might not be here anymore. Oh, yes, thank you, he said. So yeah, get that organic matter to that size. What else do we have here? Is a good idea to add Epsom salt and maybe eggshells for calcium for most vegetable gardens. So eggshells, and Farmer Craig, this is the same concept. The eggshells are great, but you need an eggshell to get the amount of calcium out of an eggshell versus going and getting a $10 bag of solution grade limestone or gypsum. Great for the earth in the concept of recycling and keeping things out of the landfill. 100% commend you to do it. Make sure your compost pile is cooking the eggshells. If you can still see the eggshells, it's not cooking correctly. But as a consumer thinking work-wise, you can get a bag of gypsum or limestone at solution grade and get that into your garden. That's going to have an immediate effect long-term as well. But for the world of composting, eggshells, you need a lot of eggs to get the amount of calcium that you'll need. Correct, Farm Craig?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And I think your number is correct. We see some soils that'll have 1,500, sometimes 2,000 pound deficiencies per acre of calcium. And so that would take a bunch of eggshells. Bone meal is another one that a lot of folks use, and bone meal is really expensive. So what we find is using known sources that have known amounts of calcium in them is our best bet. And then also the combination of trace minerals. What I just finished attending a Zoom Healthy Soil Summit. And what was really pushed and made me realize again is what minerals do and how much they increase soil microbial activity. There are certain minerals, rare earth elements, that if they are not in a soil, a whole host of microorganisms aren't there. And we're beginning to know in our human health that the enzymes that our internal microorganisms make are really important. It's the same in soil. So if you have a trace of deficiency of tritium, zirconium, some of these rare earth minerals we can't even pronounce, the microbes don't exist, and then subspecies don't exist. And I think that's why we see some pretty profound changes in the NPK values with a small amount of a good, well-balanced rock powder applying these trace minerals. It's and then that's where that character comes in. And I don't know, I have a passion for growing garlic because I just can't find that intense, incredible flavor in garlic unless it's, you know, some good organic growers. And that's what was so fun at the Garlic Festival, is to go there and consume and eat garlic and like get garlic ice cream.
Next question down. I see more messages. I'm going to scroll back and forth. So no manure if allowed, horse or cow. So again, balance. Manure is not, again, we're into getting stuff for free. If you have a neighbor, your own farm, manures are fine if done in balance. Horse manure, in our products, we even have horse manure, but we're composting the heck out of it. The key is cows have 4 stomachs to process material through 4 stomachs. Horses have 1. So the stuff goes right through them. So in the world of weed seeds, if you don't have the correct aged horse manure, you can grow more weeds than you'll ever grow a garden ever, because the weed seeds pass right through. So the idea of thermophilic composting, of getting up to a specific temperature for a prolonged period of time, can break down, sanitize harmful pathogens while building up the correct biology and bacteria. And then it can also sanitize weed seeds. If you're not hitting that and you just get some horse manure from a neighbor, who knows what they're feeding it. And then again, we like cow manure a little bit better because we're dairy farmers, but in general, it's all about balance. We do a 50-50 blend of horse and cow because we got horse and cow. If I had alpaca or something else here all the time, I'd use those too. But so the manures are not bad. It's just balance.
There's one issue with horse manure that can be a real problem. Lots and lots of horse owners worm their horses for intestinal pathogens. And I've got some friends that are vermicomposters. We have a worm composting operation also. And they've wiped out their entire worm population with a single feeding of horse manure that just coincidentally was collected quite recently after a horse has been wormed. So, you know, if it's aged, typically those things go away. But and then that weed problem with horse manure. The beauty of horse manure, though, is it's super high in organic matter. It's, you know, it looks like hay most of the time in an apple form.
There you go. Next one down. How do I scale down nutrients and additives for a backyard garden? What can I do through fall and winter to prepare my garden soil? Great. Well, again, I don't want to push us too hard, but Farmer Craig on Saturday is going to be in Fallon at the Village Nursery, which is a new nursery. It used to be the old Flower Tree Nursery. He's going to be there at 10 a.m. doing a how to winterize your garden. We just did a video that's on our YouTube. Again, it pushes our stuff. So outside of our stuff only, getting in a little bit of organic matter or compost and then covering your garden beds in a nice composted mulch. You could have raw mulch too. Again, you just want to cover the soil, get some biology happening that can soak in. If you really want to, you can get a soil test and then try to add some of those minerals and nutrients from the soil test. Let it soak all winter long. put that nice cozy blanket of mulch on top, and let it just do its thing. Then come springtime, you'll rake that mulch back, you'll break up your garden, and hopefully you'll see visually and feel it when you're breaking up your beds that you've seen some flocculation in the soil due to all of the stuff that you've been doing and how things have been happening over the winter. To scale down, just remember, yeah, that's the secret part. It's not secret. That's where all the math comes in, is taking per acre recommendations and scaling it to your backyard garden. So you go, there's 43,560 square feet. Say your garden's 1,000 square feet. 1,000 divided by 43,560, that's 2%. So everything that you look at on a full acre goes down to a 2% ratio. So like when we do stuff full circle, and like we did one right now for 17,000 square feet of garlic that's going in, we're doing a custom blend for it. We did it on a per acre basis. We looked at the results, and then we scaled it down to 17,000 square feet. Again, we can help you with that, or we can make it as well. So, or, yeah.
I think the challenge that at least I had when we first started, and I didn't intentionally plan on having such complex recipes, but as I began to watch and see the response to plants, and we found that certain things gave us a response, we added them. So we have a really complex blend. And what I was frustrated with is I kept trying to get all those individual elements or things in my nutritional pantry, and it was hard to get them all and have them. So on our farm for a long time, we never got the sulfur out there. We never got the boron we were missing. We kept adding manure and getting more and more potassium, and never got caught up with calcium. And our biggest problem in clay soils that we farmed was a calcium magnesium ratio that was inverse. And you want 7 parts of calcium to 1 part of magnesium. And when you get to that balance, the soil tends to open up and doesn't get super hard when it dries out. And that's the key to letting oxygen into the soil at lower levels. And when that happens, water goes in easier, and then you have more air for the microbes, which are predominantly aerobic. Those are the ones you want. And they just multiply and multiply. And then the other important thing to see is everybody with a gardening needs to do an earthworm check. You should have 7 earthworms per shovelful on the average. And if you're not doing composting, you can do sheet composting. That's where you see the earthworms really proliferate in your garden. The biggest problem we have to face is we have to make sure, being a commercial compost company, that we don't have any pathogens in our compost when it's finished. So we test, and we can't cross-contaminate finished with new. We have to wash our loader buckets. We have to do all kinds of things. When you're at home and not doing those things, because typically we don't, and I don't at my own house, but I have this amazing workforce of earthworms. Worms eat pathogens. So when we say, oh, I pulled a carrot and I ate it with dirt on it and I didn't get sick, the reason you don't is the earthworms, if they're there, have consumed any potential pathogens that you might have put on with manure. And it ties into certified organic regs that we want to work with. And you have to have regs so they don't let you put raw manure on any earlier than a year. You got to have it on a year so they make sure it gets digested so you don't have pathogens. So, you know, I mean, but your insurance is, and you'll see it, you'll just have happy soil with happy worms. And then we're doing the right thing.
Question on that. So, because I get this on the phone all the time, have my dad answer my own question. So if you don't have the worms there, did the worms just appear once the structure is correct, or do you put them in? How does that work?
So the key thing there is everybody would call us up and they want to add composting worms to their garden. So you have 3 basic species of worms. Composting worms are surface feeders. They live right on the surface. If you have an outdoor compost pile, preferably the 3-bin system on the ground, you will see that those little composting worms, the little red wigglers, they show up. The eggs are transferred by birds. They can be moved in. I don't know how they get there, but you don't have to put them there. Now, if you have the correct environment to support the composting worms, then they'll proliferate. So that's why we use worm bins. It has to be lots and lots of organic matter fed on the surface. Earthworms live in the root zones of plants, and then your night crawlers are the ones that burrow in the ground and drag the organic matter into the ground. I want them all in my garden, but the composting worms don't typically live or survive unless you have rich, thick layers of mulch.
So the key is creating environment.
Yeah, and if you put worms in a bad environment, it's like us. If we go into an area where there's no oxygen, we don't live very long. So the same thing, you can spend a lot of money on worms. Before you put the worms there, make sure you have a nice environment for them, if that makes sense.
Dad, real quick, we're at 7 o'clock. Jolene, do we, that's kind of the whole presentation.
Yeah, I think that I just sent a file over, which is like I found helpful because I was looking for some of your guys' compost when I was preparing my bed for garlic. So there's like a little file. If people want to click on it, that's where it easily shows where you can purchase Full Circle stuff. And I'd like to promote you guys because I believe in local business collaborate, and so I'd like to kind of give you guys a shout out that you are that entity in our community. So thank you for the really important work that you do. And then the other thing, I just put a little link in the chat bar to give a little promotion to the course too. If people don't know about this garlic growing course, then by all means, please join us. It's free. It's being sponsored by Nevada Department of Agriculture. And it's that's why we did this workshop together. Full Circle is in partnership with this Reno, a year in garlic is what we're calling it. And we're doing these cool lessons each month and bringing you guys free content and free community kind of, building around the love of garlic. So that's kind of all I had to say. I think everyone's saying thank you.
Yeah, we are super appreciative of being able to do these presentations. We love it. There were some questions of just where do you ask more questions?
Yeah, good
Call us on our phone, shoot us an email to that email right there. I answer every phone call that comes through pretty much. And then if you push number 3, it goes straight to Craig. If you push number 2, it goes straight to Craig. If you push number 1,
I'll probably tell you more than you want to know.
Yeah, you can't use up all of Farmer Craig's time because I have to have him come to work every day too. So. Well, thank you very much. This has been awesome.
Yeah, super informative, and we'll put it up on our Mighty Networks course, which is where the garlic growing course is. And we'll bid everyone a farewell, good evening, and thanks for joining.
All right.
Peace.
Thanks so much.
Bye, guys.
Peace.